You've tried to let go. You know the instruction by heart. Don't resist, don't hold on, just allow. So you sat with it. You watched it. You waited for it to pass. And sometimes it did. But then you noticed you were already holding on to something else. A worry, a plan, a version of yourself you were quietly protecting. The thought that kept you going through all of that, the thought underneath the practice, was that you just hadn't gotten it right yet, that the letting go was coming, that one more sitting, one more insight, one more video like this one, and something would finally release. Ranjit Maharaj said something that cuts through that entirely. He said, "The point is that you don't want to forget this world. The problem has never been the method." Sit with that for a moment. As an observation, there's something underneath the not letting go that almost never gets looked at. Everyone talks about resistance. This is quieter than that. Something that's been running in the background every time you tried. Every time you've tried to let go, there was a version of it you were expecting. A quieting. Some felt sense of things becoming lighter, and when that didn't come, you assumed the practice needed adjusting. More consistency, maybe. A different technique. A teacher who explained it better. But notice what's inside that assumption. The letting go you were waiting for had a shape. It looked like something, which means you already had a picture of what freedom feels like, and you were measuring every attempt against that picture. The practice wasn't failing. It was succeeding at something you didn't intend. Every time you reached for the release and didn't find it, the picture got more solid, more worth reaching for. What you were letting go of kept getting heavier because something in you kept confirming it was there. Ranjit Maharaj didn't say you lacked the skill to let go. He said something more uncomfortable. He said, "You don't want to forget this world. Therefore, first of all, yet you must understand that all this world to which you are clinging is only an illusion." The preference has never been fully admitted. And if that's true, if the not letting go is a preference rather than a failure of method, then everything changes. The question stops being how. It becomes, what exactly are you holding on to, and why does it feel worth holding? Look at what you're actually gripping. It's rarely a specific thought. It's something more like a sense of continuity, the feeling that there's a you who has been through things, who has learned things, who is somewhere on a path towards something, a you who is, at minimum, the one doing the practice. Nakar, that sense of continuity, that quiet background hum of being a someone, is what Ranjit called the ego, a habit of thinking you've been running so long, it feels like ground. He wrote, "The ego is nothing more than a mode of thinking to which you are accustomed. The basis of this ego is a false concept of an I that is separate from the world. A habit that got confused for a foundation. Every time you try to release something, the one doing the releasing is the habit itself. The ego doesn't fight the practice. It becomes the practitioner. It picks up the technique, sits with the discomfort, waits patiently for the result, and confirms its own existence more thoroughly than if you'd never practiced at all. Ranjit says that in deep sleep, you are happy because you forgot everything. The world, the ego, the story of who you are. And in that absence, what remains isn't emptiness. It's what he calls happiness, closer to what's left when the noise stops than to any feeling you could name. He says, happiness lies in this forgetting. And then he says, this forgetting can happen while you're awake. Which means the state you've been calling wakefulness, this alert, effortful, practicing, seeking, watching state, may itself be a kind of sleep. A sleep in which you've forgotten what you are, while being completely convinced you're looking for it. The direction you've been calling inward may have been outward the entire time. Let that sit. Just as something that may already be true, right now, while you're watching this, while the mind is already reaching for a way to make sense of it. Notice that reaching. So what would it mean to actually forget? Ranjit is precise. He says, forget your body, your mind, your ego. How long does this take? All things can be forgotten in a small fraction of a second, just as a dream disappears upon waking. A fraction of a second. Now. The way a dream disappears, something shifts, and it simply wasn't there anymore. No effort dissolved it. The reason that doesn't happen is that some part of you, in the very moment of trying, reaches back for the thing you're releasing, checks that it's still there, makes sure the you who is forgetting is still intact enough to know that forgetting is happening. You don't want to disappear, even into peace, even into what you've been calling your deepest longing. That's worth looking at directly, seeing it for what it is, without trying to move past it. Because there's something in the structure of seeking that requires a seeker to remain. The search for peace needs someone who hasn't found it yet. The practice needs a practitioner who still has work to do, and that someone feels so obviously real that it never occurred to you to look at it directly. It wasn't hidden. It was just too close, too basic to question, too obvious to examine. Of course there's someone here. Of course there's a me who is aware. Of course there's a practitioner who hasn't let go yet. That, of course, has been doing a lot of work. Because if the thing you've been protecting is a mode of thinking that feels like a self, and if that mode of thinking is what's been doing the protecting, then there's no technique that reaches it. The technique is always held by the same hand it's trying to open. Ranjit says, forget everything now and you will be free. In this instant, but who is the one being asked to forget? And if that one is also part of what needs to be forgotten, what happens to the instruction? What if the one who is tired of seeking, the one who has watched and sat and breathed and tried, the one watching this right now, is itself just another thought appearing? A thought that feels weightier than others, harder to look at directly, but a thought. And if that's true, who exactly is the one who can't let go? If that question is still open, this channel is here, same kind of looking, different angles,